Story 1. My 32M ex-wife, 33F, divorced me after a personality change. I found out I have a brain tumor. How do I move forward? My 32M ex-wife, 33F, divorced me in 2022. I was devastated, but I couldn't blame her. We had been together for about 6 years and, for a while, we had an incredible relationship. We had a memorable engagement in Belize, a long story involving bats, getting stranded at the Mayan ruins where I proposed to her, and being rescued by a passing British military exercise. But that's a whole other story. I won't wax poetic about it, but suffice to say it's the happiest I've ever been. And I think I made her very happy too. She was my best friend and we were ready to spend the rest of our lives together. I was extremely close to her whole family as well. I was her brother's best man at his wedding. But then the troubles started. My mental health took a steep decline. My behavior was extremely erratic and bizarre. When we were in public, I often thought I was being followed. One time, I became convinced listening devices had been implanted in our home. I thought the police or government agencies were after me and monitoring my devices. My wife finally dragged me to the emergency room after one of these incidents, and I ended up getting diagnosed as having a psychotic break with bipolar and schizoaffective disorder. My wife stood by me through it all. But even on treatment, I continued my strange behavior and thought patterns. There was lying and substance abuse. Previously, I'd only ever drank socially and occasionally smoked weed. It was all very out of character for me. I'd always been a very stable person, but I seemed to be spiraling. One day my wife had enough and told me she wanted a divorce. She caught me lying about drug use. For a while, I maintained contact with her brother, who tried to support us both through it. But eventually he cut me off too. In the year following the divorce, I tried emailing and texting my wife and her brother, but eventually I got the hint. Mutual friends dropped me too. I couldn't blame anybody. I think additional lies and misbehaviors had come to light, so I was a pariah. I sank pretty low, lost multiple jobs, and barely scraped by. Fast forward to now. I'm still struggling, but I've managed to hold a good, well-paying job and even bought a few properties. I got a new little pup named Archie, who keeps me going when times get tough. I've kept at therapy and it's definitely helped. But recently, while traveling, I suddenly collapsed. I went to the hospital, and when the doctor heard my history, he immediately ordered an MRI. The look on his face and his whole demeanor spooked me. Like he suspected something that he didn't want to tell me, but he insisted on just waiting to see and not speculating. Lo and behold, I have a brain tumor. The funny thing is, when I found out, I was relieved. Finally, it all made sense. Apparently, it's not unheard of for such a thing to be misdiagnosed as bipolar. The doctors say it's probably been growing slowly for a long time and explains my strange and out-of-character behavior. Thankfully, they think it's treatable, and with surgery, I stand to make a good recovery. So how do I move forward with this? I want to try to reach out to my ex-wife and her brother. But maybe they've moved on with their lives, and I shouldn't try to reinsert myself. I've done enough damage as it is. They don't seem to want to have any contact with me, but I also feel like they should know. They may have blocked my number and email, but I do still gave some mutual friends I could reach out through. For all I know, my wife is in another relationship and I shouldn't reopen those wounds. But if the roles were reversed, I'd want her to let me know. So how should I move forward here? What, if anything, should I say? TLDR. Wife divorced me after I had a personality change. Turns out I have a brain tumor. Not sure what to do next. Update: my 32M ex-wife, 33F, divorced me after a personality change. I found out I have a brain tumor. How do I move forward? So first off, thanks everybody for the comments and advice. I didn't expect my post to get as much attention as it did, but it was really helpful to get some perspective. Not to mention lots of support, including some very thoughtful messages. It got reposted on other places. I didn't even realize there was an entire ecosystem of TikToks devoted to rehashing Reddit posts. I guess I'm old, LOL, including some news sites, and a few journalists and podcasters reached out to me. I'm touched that my story seemed to resonate with some people, but I'm a pretty private person and I'm working through a lot right now. So apologies if I haven't responded to your message. Long story short, I've decided not to contact my ex or her brother for the time being. I know some people were probably rooting for a happier or at least more interesting ending, but this is how I'm handling things for now. I think the majority of the comments on my last post encouraged me to reach out, just to inform my ex of the situation and maybe give her some closure. Some suggested making a post on social media so it would get back to her, or delivering a message through a mutual friend. For a while, something along these lines is what I wanted to do. Now, for the social media thing, I don't actually have any social media other than an Instagram account for my pup Archie, with like 10 followers, and a Facebook account using a fake name with 0 friends. I use it for Marketplace. But that's kind of besides the point. I think more importantly, not reaching out right now just feels like the right move. I guess the true question is, what would be the best way to handle this for my ex? How does this affect her? And honestly, the more I think about it, the more it seems like reaching out is the selfish move. She's always been a strong, resilient person, so I have no doubt she's managed to build a good life and move on. And I'd just be potentially interfering with that, stirring up old hurts and wounds and maybe adding a lot of confusion and other complicated emotions. And then, for the selfish perspective, I don't think it would be good for me either. I admit, a part of me fantasized about a situation where we got back together, all was forgiven, and we lived happily ever after. But I think that's exactly the problem. I realized there was no way I was going to be able to temper my expectations. So right now, with everything going on, it probably would be a bad thing to add into the mix. I'll always love my ex-wife. We grew up together. I loved all her quirks and her silliness and her strength, the way she always stood up for what she believed in. The fact that we always had so much fun together, whether we were playing a board game, she'd learn quick and kick my ass except for Race for the Galaxy, or buying a house or going on a bike ride somewhere or overanalyzing a movie or TV show we'd watch together. She's brilliant and hilarious and gorgeous, and a total weirdo. Very early in our relationship, she asked whether I was a barfer or a shitter when I got sick. I was also the DM for a D&D campaign that she played in, and her Goblin Rogue will always be peak tabletop gaming to me. I loved hearing her thoughts about everything.
I miss her every day.
And who knows, maybe we'll reconnect at some point in the future. I'm not ruling out ever contacting her. And in case it wasn't clear in my last post, I never thought my tumor exonerated me of responsibility for everything I've done. I know I still need to take ownership of my actions and learn and grow from this. So that's what I'm going to focus on, getting better. My surgery is getting scheduled, and then I'll just have to take it one step at a time. There's a lot of other stuff going on too. I was applying and interviewing for jobs before all this and actually got 2 offers recently. So I'll be communicating with them about whether we could delay the start date, and worst case, if not, my current job is secure and medical leave won't be a problem. I also bought another property, although the sale is still conditional so I could walk away if I have to. We'll see how it goes. All this to say, life is pretty hectic right now, but I honestly feel good. And for the first time in several years, I'm looking forward to what comes next, whatever that may be. Anyway, thanks again everybody for reading and commenting, sharing your advice and stories, well wishes and love. I might post another update down the line, but fair warning, I'm hoping it's just as boring as this one smiley face. TLDR. I'm just going to leave my ex and her family alone for now and focus on getting better. Story 2. My 38M SAHW 40F has been treating our son, 12M, poorly and favoring our daughter, 9F, ever since I complimented his cooking. How should I handle this? My wife has always been the one to cook around the house, and as an Italian, it's one of the reasons I fell so hard for her. I've offered to help out in the kitchen or even cook for her sometimes, but she's always firmly, yet politely, told me no, and I can't really blame her because I did not get either of my parents' good cooking genes. Because of this, I've always been sure to thank her for every meal, and I've taught my children to do the same. For the past year or so, my son has been watching a ton of cooking videos on YouTube and TikTok, and he's really been wanting to try his hand at cooking. My wife was happy to teach him, and at least twice a week the 2 of them will go out to the store, buy ingredients for a meal he found on TikTok, and come home and make it. It's been awesome seeing them bonding more, since they haven't really had much overlap in interests before this. About a month ago after dinner, my son asked his mom if he could try making us all a meal on his own. I said it sounded like a great idea, and she hemmed and hawed for a little while before agreeing. So that Saturday she took him to the store to get his ingredients, and then he got to work. She supervised here and there, but he insisted that she didn't need to, so eventually she came to the living room and sat with my daughter and I, looking a little bit dejected. So I reassured her that I was sure he'll still want to cook with her, he just wanted to try it out on his own. That seemed to help out a little, but she still seemed a little off. When he finished and we all sat down to eat, I was honestly surprised at just how good he managed to do on his own. I feel bad saying it, but even after a year or so of cooking with his mother, I expected him to mess up more than he did. I wanted to encourage this interest of his, so I was sure to let him know while I was eating how good he did, and gently bring up the few mistakes he had made. I did it a lot more than I usually would with my wife's cooking, and in hindsight I can see that that's what started all of this. His sister, being his little sister, was not as supportive as I was, and quite rudely insulted his cooking. I was going to tell her to mind her manners and be thankful that he cooked for us when my wife made a sound and pushed her plate away, before agreeing and saying that it was too salty and overcooked. This took me aback, and I could tell my son took it hard too, as his mood visibly dropped. I didn't say anything at the time, since my wife and I never argue in front of the kids, and I just kept up the praise of my son's cooking as his mother picked at the plate for a little while longer before she took her and our daughter's plates to the kitchen. A little while later I had went to check on my son, and I could tell that he had been crying, so I comforted him, told him I was sure his mother loved the food and that she was probably just having a bad day, not to take it personally. Then later, once the kids were asleep, I confronted her about it, and she tried to just brush it off, but I pushed and she got mad and said that I complimented his cooking far more than I ever complimented hers. This caught me off guard, since I didn't expect my wife to be jealous of our son, and I unfortunately let out an involuntary scoff at this. She blew up at me for laughing, and we ended up arguing for a while before eventually I managed to explain that I was complimenting him so much because I wanted to encourage him to keep cooking, and she even admitted that she shouldn't have been so harsh about it. She said she would apologize to him, and I figured that everything was settled. That Monday, when I was driving my son to school, I noticed he wasn't acting normal, and looking out the window, trying to hide his face from me. I asked him what was wrong, and he told me he was fine, but I could tell he was fighting back tears, so I asked him again and he broke and told me that after I had left to get the car started, she told him that she was going to be cooking alone again from now on. I was furious about this, but kept my cool and told him I would talk to her about it. Bought him a snack from the store before dropping him off at school. I left work early so I could get home before the kids and talk to my wife. I'll admit I didn't handle it as well as I could have, and we ended up in a shouting match where I was calling her childish for being so vindictive towards our son because she was upset with me, and she called him a baby and said he shouldn't be so sad about not being allowed to cook since it wasn't a man's job to do so anyway. We ended up leaving each other alone to cool down, and when our kids got home, my wife took our daughter out and came back later with a load of toys and clothes for her. I knew immediately what she was trying to do, and that night I told her that I would not let her use the money I make for our family to punish my son. She didn't take this well, and we ended up arguing again. I slept in the guest room and have been up to this point. For this past month my wife has kept up this vindictive showering of our daughter with attention and gifts, while almost entirely ignoring my son. I've been talking to my parents and brother about this, and while they agree that she's wrong, they also don't see it as that big of a problem and think it'll sort itself out. At this point, with how she's been treating our son, I'm starting to fall out of love with her, but I also don't want to just jump to divorce if there's something that I can do to fix this whole situation. I can honestly say that we've never had a fight this big. Sure, we bicker every now and then, but she's never taken that out on my son in the past. I feel responsible and guilty about what happened, and I've been trying to do nice things for my son when I can, but I also don't want to mirror my wife's behavior, so I've also been taking my daughter with us about half the time we go places. But whenever we do, she's been very rude and always talks about all the stuff her mother does for her lately, because she knows it bothers her brother. Seeing the way my wife has been treating our son has made me second-guess our marriage, but I don't want to just jump straight to divorce either. Any advice on what I should do, or how to best bring up the topic of therapy would be appreciated. Story 3. Boyfriend cheated and his mom said I'm hurt because of my expectations. Me and boyfriend, 25 me 23, dated for 2 years. His mom is in her 50s. Our relationship started to go downhill. I couldn't have sex with him because I was so depressed because I would beg him to go out and he would stay home all day and play video games. I started to have an eating disorder because of stress. I would be stressed out all the time and scared that he was talking to people online because he was online for so long every day. About a week ago when he was really drunk, I got on his computer to end a call and was looking at who he was talking to, and he was like, there's one group on there you probably won't like, and it was a group with feminine guys that would send cute pictures and talk. I've known he was by our entire relationship, as am I. They would send explicit pictures, all that stuff. I scrolled up a long way and found him sending pictures of himself. He was not naked, but still he looked sexy and his shirt was off and he was trying to look cute, and then he sent a video of him playing guitar after this. He admitted that he had been talking to a few guys off of there and it had gotten sexual, and then he went back the next day and texted that guy and said he felt guilty about it, and the guy was like, that's your problem, and I was like, yeah, it is your problem, you did something wrong and that is why you feel guilty. Why would you try to go to that guy and say that to try to make yourself feel better? Yeah, so the day after this happened, we were talking before he left for work, and he said that after doing that, it only lasted for about a month last December that I know of. He realized that he has a sweet girlfriend at home and he didn't understand why he did it, and I said, well, you don't have a sweet girlfriend at home anymore. I might be gone when you get home, and he said fine, and so I packed up all my shit and I started moving to my mom's. I haven't fully moved out yet. I am still staying with him, but besides the point, I was proud of myself for that moment. It felt really good to do that for myself. I felt strong. I do wish I could have fully just left and never talked to him again, but I didn't, and that's for me to figure out. But yeah, that is the short version of our relationship and how it went wrong. Now I'm going to insert some messages and some other stuff to tell you what I really want your advice on, and there has been a resolution to this in my life. I just want opinions on how they both spoke to me, because it makes me feel crazy that they spoke to me like this and they think that this is okay, and I want your opinions on if I am taking it the wrong way, and maybe they are correct and saying what they said, although I don't think this is true. I will admit, I texted her because I thought she would be on my side, and I wanted her to be mad at him and confront him as his mother and maybe teach him something, because he mostly only really takes advice from her like he will from others, but she is his best friend. Maybe a little too close. I worry about their relationship. It's like almost bordering enmeshment, or could be a little enmeshed. But I selfishly wanted her to be on my side. I know it's kind of fucked up. I texted her so she's be mad, but he was literally cheating on me and he only listens to her so. But this is the answer I got back. He is meeting his needs. And she did say some other stuff like, I know this isn't helping and I know he hurt you, but I don't even care that she said any of that, because she literally said, I am hurt because of my expectations. And I said my expectation was monogamy? Like, I'm hurt because I expected my boyfriend to be loyal? Like, what good does saying that to me do? I will copy and insert some messages. Not sure if this is allowed, maybe this will get taken down, but it's just crazy and I want to post it. His mom. Thinking a behavior is wrong or not is personal. If you don't agree with his view, then it's a good sign that things are over. This may sound unkind, but you feeling hurt has to do with your expectations, which clearly are not matching his. He is trying to meet his needs, and that doesn't mesh with yours. Try to breathe and focus on what you need to do for yourself. You are in charge of you. I totally get how this would upset you. I really do. Love and sex are extremely complicated. I don't understand Aiden's approach, but it is his. I don't think anything I'm saying here is helpful to you right now. I'm sorry. I really am. I love you very much. And I'm urging you to breathe and just think about what you want and separate his actions from you and what you need. Me. My expectation was monogamy in our monogamous relationship. He is only going to keep hurting people if he chooses to meet his needs, with no thought about how it will affect anyone around him. I am hurt that you think what he did is justified. I'm sorry to have brought you into this. I just thought you should know how he acted so you could maybe have a conversation and talk to him about how to treat a partner, because this is not how. I am sorry for bringing you into this. I love you too. His mom. I'm not defending him, Dana. I'm saying this is all complicated, especially in one's 20s. I'm speaking to you from my 50s, having been through so much. From talking to both of you, I have been under the impression that your relationship was ending, that you were both trying to figure out next steps. As for feeling hurt, I'm trying to say that in my 50s, I have realized that I am the one who holds the power over what does and does not hurt me. That has nothing to do with justifying Aiden's choices. I'm telling you that you hold the power over how you respond. What's done is done. You have to decide what you to do. It was complicated. Our relationship and our love was yes, but our monogamy was not. I still had the title of his girlfriend and him boyfriend because we were not yet separated but moving towards it. He could have waited to do this once I had left. And I don't understand her trying to talk about me not being hurt. Like, yes, I understand I hold my own power and I'm fucking standing strong, but obviously it's gonna hurt and I'm gonna be mad. I'm feeling hurt because he hurt me. It's like him and his mom are trying to justify him hurting me by saying I'm the one who chooses to get hurt. Am I just taking it the wrong way? We are separating currently. The relationship is ending. Me and his mom and him are on okay terms, which they are both lucky for because I'm fucking awesome and they love me and my family, and the fact that I'm still going to allow him in my life as a friend is lucky for him, because for what he did to me I should just drop him, but I do care about his well-being and want him to have safe spaces. He moved here 5 years ago and has no friends or support system other than his mom and his 2 or 3 online friends. I forgave him for what he did, but I really just still feel confused about how they both reacted about the situation. I feel crazy about how she worded this. Like, is she not just justifying her son's shitty actions? Also, if you think I'm dumb for still allowing him in my life, I am open to criticism for this, because I do know maybe it's not the best idea for myself, but I do care about him, and everyone is saying it is okay to keep him at a distance. Also, this was my first relationship, and I'm sorry this post is so long.